Hey, it's Tapping with TT, and my special guest today is one of my good friends. She has a book that is out right now, and of course, she's one of the biggest advocates for Black folks' rights. It's my girl, Tamika Mallory.
Hello, my sister.
Black folks' rights.
You know? All the rights.
All the rights.
Yeah, I know that's right.
How you been?
I'm doing good. Actually, my book is going to be released on February 11th. So we are in pre-sales right now, which is a big deal. It basically sets the tone for how the book will do when it's time for it to go to be on hard copy in people's homes. And it's doing really well. Like, all the family and friends are being very supportive. So I'm extremely grateful for that.
That's good.
And thanks for having me on.
The first book, State of Emergency, was a really good book. Yeah. I read that when I was on vacation in a week. It was a very good read.
Yeah, it was hard. It was a book you didn't really put down.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
I felt that way. I mean, I've read the book maybe about 7 or 8 times now since I received the hard copy. Before that, too many times to mention. And, you know, even when I read it, I reflect on things like, yeah, that's true. Like, you know, maybe I should write more about some of these chapters because, you know, I feel like books they never die. They're like breathing objects, and you're always able to look at the time you're in and the content or whatever you wrote back then, and it always still applies to life.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But sometimes your opinions, your reflections may change. Though,
absolutely.
Right?
Well, that's true.
Grow and learn more.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I don't know if much has changed from State of Emergency, though, because I think what I was attempting to convey was then and before.
Mm-hmm. But
2019.
That's been your mission, though.
Yeah. I mean, we're right. And I'm saying even today, much of it is still the same, which is the problem.
Yeah. I was going to say that's still a big issue here in America, you know. Yeah. But this book that folks can pre-order right now is giving us more of a intimate look into your journey as Tameka.
Yeah.
And the struggles you went through. I didn't know some of the struggles that you went through with your addiction and things like that.
Yeah.
Obviously that must have been a therapeutic thing for you to write about, to be able to go through that.
Yeah, it was like a 9-month pregnancy. Yeah. And it's actually longer than that because shout out to Charlemagne the God. He is the one who gave me my book deals. I was the first book on his imprint, which is Black Privilege Publishing. And we did a 2-book deal at that time. So even though back in that time I was writing about the movement and the state of the country, but I knew in the back of my mind that this memoir was coming. And so I would write little pieces of things and kind of do a voice note here and just talk to myself about myself and what would be in this second book. And it's been 4 years of like a baby sitting in me. And some days trying to write about your experiences is really hard. For one, it's kind of, you're asking yourself, should people know all of this? That's always.
And how much do you want to be vulnerable? I understand that. You know, I've been working on my memoir for 10 years.
Wow.
And I voice note, and I work with a really good, shout out to Victoria Christopher Murray. She's one of the biggest authors, especially in Black literature. She's crossed over way, way beyond. And she's someone that I work dear with on my books that I'm working on as well. But I say that to say is like it becomes a level of vulnerability and exposure. Absolutely. You really have to, and guards you have to put down to allow people in, especially strangers.
Absolutely. And people are so very judgmental. Absolutely. And, I mean, I make a joke about it. In fact, I was just with my cousins for the holiday weekend. And I was telling them, like, I'm going to get in so much trouble with this book because my mother's going to be like, girl, I'm going to whoop your tail for the things that's in there that she didn't know, that she would find out now, the places I went, the people I was around, the things that I was doing.
Are you going to talk to her prior to
I explained it to her, my father, and my sister, and my parents are, they're cool. They're good. But my sister called me back like, so exactly what are you going to say in this book, right? Because they're like bracing themselves. But I think that, you know, now I'm in a place where I can get it out and just put it in the world. You know, Dr. Angela Davis and Cardi wrote the foreword to my first book. And so I, you know, found myself in counsel with Dr. Davis, especially as the anxiety of days before it's time to release or at least it's submitted. And I'm over here trying to change everything. I'm worried about if I'm saying the right things. Do I even know what I'm talking about? All imposter, everything you could think of, I was dealing with. And I remember her saying to me, you have to just write it, put it down, put it in the world, and just walk away from it, right? And so that's what I have done with my book now. It's called I Live to Tell the Story, which has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, I ended up in rehab after all of this, all of the stress and the world and my own just neglect for self. You know, we just sometimes... I feel like, you know, we end up being so much out there and so little in here. And that is something I got caught up in. And so not being able to rest becomes a big thing when you're watching videos of people dying all the time and running from one place to the next. And, you know, and then in the background, it's not all about social justice or fighting the good fight. You also have personal things going on.
So let me ask you this. Did your work become your addiction?
I would say that even now, you know, my work is a big part of like my everyday. And sometimes I have to tell myself it is okay, because when you come back, unfortunately, this world is still going to have the same shit going on, which is, you know, awful to say, but it's true. I had to learn that through a lot of therapy. But my problem was I was so immersed in the work and then my personal life with other things that was, you know, that people will learn about in the book, that being able to just lay down and shut off the world and rest became a problem. So I could only get 2 hours of sleep. And that was like it. Like then I'm up, I'm writing, I'm texting people, and which they would say to me the next day, like, hey, did you sleep? And that make me feel really bad, because then I'm like, oh, don't text anybody so they don't know that you're up. That you know, that I'm not sleeping. And so I was going through so many different issues, and a friend said, oh, I take this and it helps me sleep. And that was probably just, I don't blame that friend, but I would say that that was probably the worst day of my life, because I thought it was okay. You know, back in this was started in like 2018, right? So in 2018, we still did not know or understand how serious opioids and benzos, so Xanax and Percocets and all of that, we really didn't understand it. Like it still was not the information that we have now, and what we had then, it was very, very, very different.
And also too, you know, it was normal to see folks who worked a lot, who, you know, crash study, have to study for tests, different things of that nature. It was normal to see them pop a Xanax or like, you know, do something to keep them going, to keep them functioning so that they can crash out later and sleep.
Absolutely. And that, you know, a lot of people I know, they, you know, were hooked on Adderalls, which was never my thing. But pills and people is a thing, right? And, you know, I've watched like Painkillers and Dope Sick. These are films that are on Netflix and Hulu and all of that now, which really helps you understand that the people who made these drugs knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that it would be a very addictive process for individuals, and they didn't really care. What
and
they
it
were trying
fucks
to
up
do
your
was
brain.
make money. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely, for a while, you know, I'm just getting back to the point where I can speak without having to write every single word down on a piece of paper, because my memory would skip. And, you know, and still I have other things, other issues, legs clammy, hands clammy, you know, and I'll know, man, you know, today is just not a good day. So with that being said, the pills became my best friend to get me through nights and days, which that's what it becomes. It was nights at first, and then it was like, okay, I could take a nap in the middle of the day. Oh, well, I don't want to leave in the morning. I'm going to cancel going here, there. And that's what addiction does. It never gets better. It turns into a dark black hole. And I called a friend, which was Jason Williams, the NBA All-Star. And I said, Jason, you know, I need some help. I tried to say it was somebody else, and he was like, okay, well, just letting you know, if it's you, you need to deal with it right now. And eventually I went to rehab, and that was a good decision. So I'm on a whole different plane now.
But is it a daily battle for you?
No.
You have it to the point now where it's good.
It's not
even a thought.
I'm not even, I would never go back to that. And that's something I could say 100%, because the process of getting off of it is so terrible.
Yeah.
That if you're like me, other people have other situations and I don't judge them. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I would never get addicted to something else, because you don't know what can happen in life. You'd be very naive to say you will never have this issue or that. But there's certain things you'll never go back to. Like, that you'll never sleep with that old boyfriend again. Never, ever.
And then you go back.
No, not me. I've never been that type of person. Never. I will never, ever, ever.
But it's incredible, because people look at you from the outside and they see this strong woman. Like, she can't break. She's always on the front line for us. We need her. We need her. If we don't have her, who would we have? When I'm going through something, I call you. When I know someone going through something, I call you. Yeah. It's like you are that go-to girl. But I can't imagine the amount of stress that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, because you've made your whole life mission about helping and serving others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that, TT, absolutely. But there are also personal problems that you and I both have. Everybody has them, right? I don't care. You could be dressed up as the most successful, beautiful, fabulous person in the world, and you could look so great and have all the money and all the things, and there are still personal issues that could turn someone to drinking too much or eating too much or shopping too much or having too much sex or whatever. That can happen to you anyway. Yeah. So when you add a layer on it of working in an environment where change can be incremental and then go backwards, or change could be non-existent, or mother crying on your shoulder and you're trying to support this mother, but then this happens and that's happening, and then people are judging you, and then people are saying you don't do it right, and that's a lot of stress to add to regular life stress that could already, like, without you being involved in anything else, you could be set off. You could lose your mind just being a regular American citizen.
Yeah.
Just every day.
Every day.
Exactly.
Trying to figure out how you're going to pay your rent or put gas in your car.
Right. How you going to eat? What you going to do about this? Your kids may not be listening. Your man might be out here. Your girlfriend might be sick. Your parents might have problems. So you have all of those regular life things going on, and then you take on other people's problems as well. Yeah. It's really tough. I will say that therapy has been, I talk to my therapist anytime. He text me, call me, I'll get up out the bed. We'll have a conversation, and that helps me because he can tell when I'm spiraling through combo. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. It takes someone who is a professional to be able to hear you say the same thing 4 times in a conversation and say, okay, let's unpack why you keep saying I'm failing or it's not working out. Like, why? One of the things that he helped me to unpack is that you will not fix racism, discrimination, oppression, and any of this stuff by yourself. It is not going to happen. So if that's what you're attempting to do, you should stop doing this work, because that's not even the end goal. The end goal is that you would participate in how it does end, how it is solved, how it becomes
the history. The history of making it
exactly better. That's what you want to participate in. You want to do your best job to leave this place in a better state than when you got there. But if you think you're going to be the one that's going to solve
that has the magic cure,
it's not going to happen. And therefore, that's something that I used to think, like, oh my God, if so-and-so gets elected, it's my fault. I didn't knock on enough doors. I didn't talk to enough people.
That's a big...
It's too much.
That's a big...
He helped me. I'm past that. I still go through some stuff. And then the other thing is, I have anxiety. And it has to be treated. Like, a lot of people, Black folks particularly, our people, Black and brown folks, have anxiety, have ADHD, have, you know, different disorders, and it never gets treated. You're told you're stupid, crazy, dumb, whatever.
Oh, don't put that on yourself. Stop saying that about yourself.
That. Your words.
You're not that, but you do have your
I have
pulse.
It.
I know.
Yeah.
So when I tell folks, like, I have, you know, I deal with anxiety, or I see anxiety in my son, and I might say, you know, I'll ask my son, do you have any anxiety? Because I can see, like, him tapping or this or that. Yeah. And, you know, I think it's an easier conversation for our generation to have with our kids now, right?
They didn't.
But they didn't back then.
No.
But even when you talk to someone older, that's not anxiety. We had these same issues. Right. Just because you had those issues doesn't mean that it was right.
That's right.
It was the right thing in our community to ignore.
Well, you know, they'll say, I'll anxiety your ass, all right. You gotta do whatever you're supposed to do. And sometimes you say that to your kids now, because sometimes it's like, I hear everything you're telling me about all the things, but I bet you're going to get up and go to school in the morning. So you have to have a balance, but you need professional support when you know something is going on. If you're lashing out, if you always want to fight, you got to figure out, like, what is the root of that, you know? And I'm just so thankful that there were a number of people around me who said, we see it. We're helping you to identify the issue, and these are the resources that you need to get help.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And a telltale sign of someone needing help is by doing the same thing over and over, and doing it to yourself, the same person, or including others into your problem.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, if you have an issue with something and you realize the pattern is, I do this to myself over and over again, or I do this in a relationship over and over again, I have a problem.
I gotta address it.
And I have to go back and find out what trauma triggered this part of me that I cannot get a handle on.
Right.
Or you're going to be 70 years old.
Same problem.
Same problem. And passing it down to generations and generations.
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting. I was just having a conversation with my mother the other day, and we don't have the best relationship on a planet. We're learning to be in relations with each other, but growing up, we didn't have, like, the best. You know, people will know more about that when I drop
when your book comes out.
In my book. But I said to her, you have to have, what I don't understand is, how do you have the will to do something that you know can potentially harm you more than you would have the will to want to live, to be alive, to walk this earth?
Well, I mean,
and it's like, but she said, because of the feeling I get, whether, you know, depression kicks in, or I have to figure out how to pay the bills, or I have to, when she said the depression part, it just, a lot of it kind of clicked for me in terms of, like, so when I look back about certain things, I'm like, so she was probably dealing with depression her entire life.
Probably was.
And then when life gets overwhelming, like too many doctor's appointments or too many bills, then it's easier to revert back to the depressed lady and I'm going to do this versus doing this, because it's easier for me to just cope when I don't have to cope.
Right.
When I could just throw on whatever to take me away from my reality.
Yeah.
Even though the reality is going to be there when you come out of whatever it is you come out of, it's not going to change.
Absolutely.
But people process it differently.
Well, it's the stigmas also. Again, the stigma, especially for older people, is that if you say you need help with anything, the world will beat you down. Like, that's something that they've always had to deal with. You can't tell people you have problems. There's nobody to help you. You know, if you ask for support, you're weak. If you cry as a man, especially, you know, you're not a man. So these are things, the stigmas that have to be torn down within our communities so that people will know, like, wait a minute, this agitation that I'm feeling is not normal, and it has to be addressed before it becomes a bigger problem. And, you know, a lot of people will sit here and say, well, I don't use pills and I don't do this and I don't do that, but you shop too much, right? Like you
overwork.
Right. You're buying certain labels because you're trying to cover up whatever else is going on, right? So like you can't buy one shirt from one place and then a H&M and a so-and-so, you got to get like all your shirts from XYZ store. So for those people, you know, the one who believes that drugs or alcohol or whatever else is a real addiction, but this is not, no, it's all in the pot.
It's all in the pot.
It's all in the pot.
It's all in the pot. Or you can't function in certain relationships, so you have to have multiple men or multiple women, or like, absolutely. You know,
or everything is an argument, everything. So you can't even have a debate or a conversation with somebody or disagree, without it turning into, I don't F with you, I hate you, I don't, because you just like withdraw from everything. So these are tools that I'm using the words from my therapist, tools, that I picked up as, you know, he talks to me and makes sure, again, that my anxiety is treated. And I'm saying that because I want people, if you need medicine, you need to get it. Like, you need to stay on it also. Nobody wants to be, I remember when I was I had to go see 1 million doctors to try to figure out what's wrong with me, quote unquote. And they were like, oh, you should take this Ritalin. And I was like, I'm not taking it. Everybody in my community that was on Ritalin, first of all, you didn't tell anybody. And if you did, you were like the biggest dumb kid. You were like,
you rode the special ed bus. Yeah, you were in a special ed class. It was a mockery. They made fun of you.
I just couldn't take it. I was like, I can't do it. Something in my mind it just doesn't sit well with me. And so we went through all these other things to try to figure out what else could I do. And we ended up finding something, which was great, that I didn't have to, but still, something had to be done to address the fact that, because the sleep problems didn't go away when I came home from rehab. It's not like I got home and I was like, whew, okay, that's it, it's over with. No, weeks later, we're back to the same problem, you know? So, and melatonin at that point, it laughs at me because it's like, sis, your system, we can't make you go to sleep. So I had to really have a regimen, not that puts me to sleep, but a regimen that helps me to control getting all anxious all day long and then laying down, and I'm laying there like I can't even stop thinking. Yeah. I had to find a way to deal with that. And so anyway, I'm blessed and grateful to God that I made it, because at one point I was taking 20, 30 pills a day.
Jeez.
A day, just trying to survive, taking 5 pills in the morning just to get going, just to be able to face other people.
Wow.
And to not have to take pills at all.
Wow.
That's a blessing.
That is a blessing. Wow. That's a lot. And imagine what that does to your kidneys and when you're trying to come off of that and stuff.
Oh, well, first of all, I tried to detox on my own. That's in the book. Listen, there are people who do it. I don't advise it.
Yeah.
Definitely could have died.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that's another thing. I tell people, if you want to get off of it and you want to get off of it and stay off, you got to go to the places where they know how to help you do that. Mm-hmm. Because all of that, like, you know, I'm going to use my grandmother's recipe and we going to take a little this and drink a shot of that. And it's going to be, I tried all kinds of things. Because come on now, I was a public figure going to a rehab. Like, I didn't want to do that.
And you probably felt a lot of shame. Right?
And totally embarrassed. My parents didn't even know what was going on until days before it was time for me to leave. I was 98 pounds. At 30-something, 38 or whatever age I was. Come on now, 98 pounds. I looked crazy. I was looking at some pictures the other day and I was like, damn, I could see it, like a drawn-in face. I didn't tell my parents anything. I just made up excuses for why I couldn't go over there or couldn't do this or was out of town, or, you know, whatever. And they were always concerned because they could see from the newspaper that what I was experiencing was hell, you know, what we were dealing with, the personal attacks. But they didn't know. I'm literally calling them to tell them I am going to rehab in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. Like, that was so... You know what it took?
Yeah.
I didn't even go the first few times that I was signed up to go because, you know, I'm thinking, I can't tell my parents this.
Yeah.
After, you know, everything else, you know, they already stressed because of the way that my life is set up. And then here I'm coming to you to tell you that I'm going in this program and they're trying to catch up with that. Plus figure out where I'm going and where is it going to be, and you can't come with me, and I'm not going to have a phone. I mean, they were like, what the hell are you talking about?
How did your son handle?
My son is a trooper. He's been through so much with me, my life, and just so many things. His father being killed, this happened, that happened, so many things that when I told him, he was just like, word? Like, that's messed up. Not word in like a funny way, but like, whoa, okay. He was like, well.
He didn't know you was going through it.
Nah, he didn't have a clue. And he knows a lot about me, but he was like, yeah, you need to get that straight. And thank God my son is not one of these, young people that I have to worry about him overdosing or something.
Or like making a right decision.
He's
right?
not one of the making the right decision. That's a different conversation. Yours is 13. You ain't there yet.
Oh my
25.
Goodness.
You like, yo, bruh, let's rethink this strategy.
Right.
Don't take that down off social media.
Right.
Can't help your brand. You know what I'm saying? So that's different, but he's not one of those kids that I maybe perhaps my situation is something that he thinks about when he's just like, nah, I'll pass.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am so proud of the work that you did to heal yourself. You do so much work to heal others. And I'm glad you took the time to just truly heal yourself. And I know that's an everyday battle as you journey along.
Because healing we need a whole show.
I was speaking to an artist, Lecrae, prior to us sitting here. And I said to him, I said, healing is an everyday thing to reach your highest potential. You don't know how further you can go in this thing called life until you really walk in your conscious self.
Absolutely. It's a journey.
It's a journey every day. Your 20s are going to be different than your 30s. Your 30s are going to be different than your 40s. Your 40s are going to be different than your 50s. Your 50s are going to be different. You know what I'm saying? Like every day you should be working towards your highest potential.
Well, we are an unhealed people. So we have to always put our current state in the context of what we have suffered and the trauma that has been passed down through generations. So if we could pass down being an angry person who always wants to fight from one generation to the next, enslavement had to be passed down. The traumas of the horrors of that had to be passed down. The horrors of these different generational sufferings that we have been through, these experiences.
Yeah.
These things are passed down in us. We have the trauma, and it comes through many different ways. But even in the things that we're told, don't look out the window at 3:00. I'm just making up stuff for, but don't look out the window at 3:00. Well, why I can't look out the window at 3:00? Just don't. Nobody ever really explains it to you because they don't even know how to. So now here you are like, don't telling your kids, don't look out that window at 3:00. And the kids are like, what? And nobody ever figures out what's outside the window at 3:00. But what happened was your great-great-grandmother knew that people were being hanged, at that time, or beat out there at that time, or that the master was walking through the field at that time and he was doing, unthinkable things to other women or men or whomever. And so we passed so much stuff down. We are unhealed people. You can't heal from that going to therapy for 6 months that's a process. It's a process. It's in every single thing about who we are and how we exist.
Absolutely. And speaking of Black women, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is really how we can be in support of each other.
Yeah.
One of the things that caught my attention during this whole election season that's been going on with Kamala is I see some Black women who are just like, supporting, and I see, but the comments that bother me the most are the ones that, this country is so racist that they would never let a Black woman be president.
Right.
And it comes from other Black women.
Right.
Or I'm not voting for her because she's Black or whatever, or this can never happen. And when I see people that say, like, this country would never vote for a Black woman, blah, 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 I understand why folks would say that. But I also wish that we can see ourselves.
Why can't we change the narrative?
Why can't we see ourselves holding the highest position possible?
Well, I would say that those same Black women, so many of them, go to work every day and realize that they can't break the ceiling on the job they're in. You know what I'm saying? They can't get the respect of the landlord or people in their communities, right? Or the man that they lay down with every day, or a woman for that matter, or whomever. So they're only able to speak from their experience. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that Kamala Harris will win, we will learn something new, right? It's not all of their fault, because they haven't seen it happen, right? Yeah. And then when another woman, who happened to be a white woman, ran for president, she basically was cheated, right? Yeah. And we know the story of what happened to Hillary Clinton, right? We know all about it. More qualified, all the things. And she lost that election with a multitude of reasons, including, whatever, multitude of reasons. So a lot of women look at that and they're like, well, give me an example. Show me where there are clear examples of women who are excelling past the ceiling that they know to be. And I think we have to continuously prove them wrong. The thing I want women to know is that we have to participate in that, right? So you might feel that way. You might feel like it's no way this country, and trust me, I felt that way. I was feeling like I'm worried about this woman even having to take on the pressure and the scrutiny of what's about to happen, because I know if they would do it to Barack Obama, or if they'll do it to whomever else, they're going to try their best to literally kill her with words and with energy.
Oh, they're already doing it now.
Doing the best that they can. So I'm like, I was worried about it. But what I know is I'm not going to say that over here and then don't vote. You got to be like, I'm going to say that this is how I feel, but I tell you what, I'm going to try. Shit, win, lose, or draw. I'm going to try and see what happens. Yeah. So many of our people, because of hopelessness, it makes us just disconnect from the process. Yeah. We can't disconnect from the process because somebody's going to be in charge on January 22nd, January 21st. Once the inauguration is over, somebody is going to be able to take a pen and sign things and be a part of a legislative process that impacts your life. And that's on the federal level. And then, of course, that exists also on the local level. So you can say, this don't mean nothing to me. I don't care what they do. But then at the same time, you're complaining the rent's too high, the food's too high, the gas is too high. I don't have a way to send my kids to school. My child can't go to college. Like, all of this is still happening to us. So you're still suffering through whatever decisions are made. Yeah. And there's some people who will probably say, well, but these, the rent's too high under this particular administration. Absolutely. That brings me to, I'm so glad you asked. That's point 2. Then you got to be on top of what these people are doing and the decisions that they're making. We vote for people and go home and say, like, oh, well, yeah, that's it. Now you got it. It's on you. No, it doesn't work like that. And that's why you watch other communities. They fight their way to get the things that they want to have done. And it is because they're advocates to not go home. They stay on it. If you're talking about the LGBTQIA community, this is a community that was like, nah, we want what we want. We're going to not just organize and knock on doors and yell about it. We're going to raise money and put elected officials in position and give them the platform. This is what we need you to do.
And if you don't do it for us, you will not have our vote in the next election.
Next election,
you're out. And that is on the local level all the way to the top level.
That's it. And there's still, there's issues even within that, because you have, Black LGBTQIA members who will say, well, we still don't have the rights that we feel we deserve within these dynamics. So if we want to just make it very clear, it is generally white folks of any group, right? White folks who are like, we're going to stay in this process and see it all the way through. And we have to do that. Do we advocate as Black people? Absolutely. I'm not saying that we don't. But we have, again, that hopelessness thing that will have some people say, well, I don't care, or I'm not going to vote, or I'm definitely not going to give my money to these people. And then as we splinter off more and more, we lose power. So if you are somebody who's like, I want to see a change, and you got to be in the game.
You got to be in the game.
And when I'm out here and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to show up at this rally or do this thing. That's weird. I'm going to, show up at this rally or do this thing. I need people with me. If I go to so-and-so's office with 5 people arguing, it's like, okay, Miss Mallory, we hear what you're saying. But when I show up and I got 500 people, they like, okay, well, wait a minute now.
We hear what she's saying.
Let me listen. And then 5,000 is like, oh, we got a real problem. So let's give these people a problem. Let's make sure that if Kamala Harris is elected, that she doesn't get a day's rest without knowing that we are on it. We know what we want. We know why we put you in office. Yes, there was what I consider to be an existential threat in Donald Trump, but that's not the only reason to vote for her, right? You're promising you're going to do this, and this. She will have the power to do those things, but she is not going to do it on her own. She's got to be forced to do it.
She's got to be forced to do it, and she also has to have the backing to do it.
Absolutely.
Which is Congress, which is the Senate, which is why it's important for you to look at not just the presidential election, but down the ballot.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much that goes into this thing.
Absolutely.
And it can bother you, right? Because it is sad that we as women of color can have all the credentials, have done the job well, and will continue to have to prove our value.
Well, yeah, sound like you talking about some stuff about.
Oh, I know about it. I know about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be doing the job. You have all the credentials. You can be doing
more than you're supposed to.
More than you're supposed to the highest level that it can be done, and still would get pushback. Is she good enough? But can she do it? But what about this? What about that? Well, you wasn't saying that.
She sound.
You wasn't saying that she's already been doing the job.
Until you ask for more money or a title or anything that elevates you.
Yeah.
And so, but
it's sad that she has to go through all of that. But just women, black women, black and brown women of color in general.
Absolutely. But it's what she asked for, right?
Yeah.
She ran for president before, so clearly you wanted to be president. She accepted the vice presidential spot, and so now you're in the position. And I think, there are a number of us who will do what we can to, one, just deal with misinformation. Like, I'm all for people saying, I don't like Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. I'm actually okay. You could say that. You could say, I don't like Kamala. I'm not voting for her. Cool. Because I can't argue with you about who you're going to vote for. That's your personal choice. But when you start lying or using somebody else's lies as the reason, then I have a problem. Because now what I'm figuring out is that you don't even really know why you don't like her.
You're just being told why you don't like her.
You just decided that something you saw on one of these, whatever, blogs or whatever, somebody's page is your reason. And part of the time, it's not even true. So then I got to try to have a conversation, because if you come to me and you have your stuff together, you like, listen, if Kamala Harris says, she has ironclad support for Israel, and you are a person that genocide is your red line and you will not support anybody who says that they're committed to an entity, a government that's killing the Palestinian people, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you and tell you, oh, no, you have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you
that. Can we speak on that, though? Because that is one of the questions that I have for you today, because it does bother me that the Palestinians are being killed the way they're being killed. It breaks my heart. It does. And her stance has been, she is going to continue to support Israel in the respect of them defending themselves, as well as supporting a ceasefire deal to stop the genocide in Gaza. My question is, can you be both?
No, you can't. You can't. I mean, you could say that you support Israel's right to defend itself. Like, I can, people can argue that. I'm not going to be one of those folks to get, because, honey, it would take us 3 days to unpack all of that, and we would need some other experts to come get in the conversation. You could say that, but you can't say that you want either party to be safe if you don't change the policy. So if you send the weapons to Israel and they are using them to kill other people, you're going to have two things. You're going to have people die, which we see, all right? Horrific numbers, as we've said. And you're going to have retaliation that is going to continue. We're going to be going ping pong
because this
back
war
and forth
between Gaza and Israel,
the Palestinian people, and first of all, let's just be very clear. The war, and some people call it a war, but in order to say you having a war, you've got to be able to show that there's two parties that have equal ability to fight a war, right? So at this point, and we know what happened on October 7th, horrific. Nobody's going to sit here and say, oh, well, that's okay, or I can understand. No, it's horrific. It's terrible, and nobody wants to see that happen. But we don't want to see it happen again. And so the point here now is that in order for us to change that, if I say I want, this production team wants safety for you and me, and then they keep giving you things to hurt me, and then you turn your back for 5 seconds and now I'm trying to hurt you, you're not making either one of us safe. In order to deal with the issue, you have to change the policy of how America is continuing to send weapons and resources and to sell weapons to this entity who, in my judgment, they have one goal. And their goal is not the safety of their people, because you can't have the safety of your people while harming other people that live right next door to you. It doesn't, and among you, it doesn't work. Their goal is to completely wipe out Gaza and the West Bank and get rid of all the Palestinian people who live in that region. That is what they're trying to do. So if you are saying, I'm not going to change the policy, those two things don't work. What I do understand, though, is that there are, I'm sure, a lot of people with a lot of opinions and ideas and different things around, the campaign and around her. And America's commitment to Israel has been so strong that she's got to really sit with trying to figure out how to unravel it. And oftentimes we as humans want to try to have things both ways. Like that's what, that's a normal thing. A human instinct is, how can I please everybody? How can I please both sides here? But as time goes on, she will realize it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And then that's when we're going to know where she truly stands on this issue, because she's going to have to make some real hard decisions. The problem with even what I'm saying, right? If I was a Palestinian person or a supporter of the Palestinian people, which I am, we don't have time. I just watched this morning, I was scrolling through my phone and there was another baby dead. They don't have time for people to figure out and decide and this and that. The time for that was months ago. Now we're at the point where some I don't want to say journalists, but others, people who are counting the number of folks who've gone missing that they can't account for. They're talking about upwards of 100,000 people, and that's the way it looks, right?
Well, I was reading the New York Times article. So many people have died. So many people have died. And I guess people think she has the power now to do it.
Right.
But is that true?
Well, here's the thing. No, she doesn't have the power to say, or to do anything, because Joe Biden is the president, right? And people should still be on Joe Biden's heels about this issue. We should not be, waiting around. Like, we should be still speaking out, protesting, sending letters, making phone calls, making sure he feels uncomfortable about this issue, because he still has the ability to make a change right now. And that needs to happen, because you can't wait until she becomes president in January. Imagine how many more lives will be taken by January. That's too long.
If an embargo or ceasefire deal doesn't happen now.
If it doesn't happen now, you're talking about January. That's unacceptable. We have to continue to fight now. But I do understand our brothers and sisters who say at least there needs to be she needs to make statements that are clear on this issue. Now, and again, their position is very simple. You have to stop sending weapons. She's saying that she doesn't support a weapons embargo. So folks who know very good and well, right, that you're not going to be able to still send weapons and just hope when they get there they don't use them. We already know what they're doing. We see it. And they've already been meeting with Netanyahu, the prime minister. They've already talked to him. They've already told him they want a ceasefire. They sent a letter. They sent a bird. They sent this one over there on a plane. The president met. They've already done all of that, and it hasn't worked. And he's not trying to.
But it's interesting that the people of Israel want him out.
Yeah, they want him out. They want him out. They want him out. But I guess it's like it's a challenging thing, because there are so many people who still, although they are protesting, they're doing all of that, they're protesting because they want the hostages released, and they should be. They need to be released immediately. I think everyone can agree that, or at least I know I feel that the hostages need to be released, and I pray every day that we can just find the end of this, because it is, if you are a person who has any level of humanity, the whole thing is just heartbreaking.
It is. And I am one of those people.
We've talked about it.
I called you and I'm just like,
we need these hostages released, and we need to stop killing. How do we make these two things
happen? I called you because I'm just like, I sit here and I talk about my mom. I talk to my mom about this and I cry about this. And I'm like, how do we get both? Get these hostages home and stop killing these babies? It's like,
but here's the problem. The problem is that you can't want one thing and ignore the other, right? So if you're saying I want the hostages released, but then you're saying kill them all, right? Or, finish the job and all of this language that they use, those two things conflict with one another.
So it's not about the hostages for
Netanyahu doesn't. Man, come on now. How you gonna want hostages and you blowing up everything around? Don't know where people might be. That's not. If you want safety, right? If the people want to be safe, then we have to all say that the ceasefire is. And I appreciate the family that spoke at the DNC at the convention, because that family said, we want our son released, and unfortunately, their son will never come home, right? Because now he's deceased. And they said, and we want to see a ceasefire and the safety of the Palestinian people. I'm paraphrasing, right? But they acknowledge both things. So when all these people, hundreds of thousands of people, are turning out in the street saying they want Netanyahu gone, we need to make sure that their hearts are not just for their own, but for everybody, because that's what will get us to a place, or get them to a place. We don't live there, so I think it's what
do you have to say? What do you have to say to those who say, "Well, this is not America's business," and someone said that to me, and I said, well, it is America's business, because America is supplying.
We're paying for it.
But
you're complaining. You're saying, I need money for health care, or I'm dealing with mental health challenges, or I'm whatever. And then the money that you are giving to the government is going towards this assault that's happening to another group of people. So that's one. But let's put that aside, because that's very intense. Like, people can't feel that, right? They don't, it's like, I hear you, but we pay for a bunch of stuff, right? America's engaged in all types of things all over the world where people are being harmed. So we know that. But we know that the military, the Israeli military, they are over here in America training our police officers, right? And some of our police officers go over there and get training from them. So there's trading ideas of how to be a more lethal military, which was another thing that the vice president said in her acceptance speech that I think is very dangerous, because we're not looking for another lethal military. We've got a lethal law enforcement. Trust me, we see it every day. Sonia Massey shot to death right in her face. They're lethal. What we need are more compassionate, right? We need more compassionate people in law enforcement, and we definitely don't need them to be trading ideas with a group of people who are killing by the thousands babies in another nation. So from my perspective, I guess I feel like, I don't know, TT, I guess I feel like we're in a place where we're wagging our tails, right? And I think that was your point. It's like we're all running around in circles. Oh, it's not our problem, but then it is, because they're over here training our people. The money is going over there. This is happening. This is happening. We need someone, and I'm hoping, I pray. I mean, when I say I pray, baby, I pray so hard for Kamala Harris's mind, for her strength, for her to be able to discern and to make decisions that may upset the people closest to her, that what is right and what is wrong is wrong. And I pray that for her. And I hope I'm not wrong, right? I want to believe that. I do. I just hope that she understands that an end has to be put to this situation immediately. And it's not just this. I believe that what happens in the world happens at home, and what happens here at home happens in the world.
Do you think that she will be our next president?
I'm pretty much sure. I'm pretty much sure.
Because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
They're going to try to steal it, though.
Yeah.
So that's
what concerns me. A couple of things that concerns me is that she has to win overwhelmingly because of the Supreme Court. Absolutely. And I feel like a lot of people are not talking enough about Trump's Supreme Court. Right. Which, that scares the hell out of me. Right. Just the whole women's rights aspect of it. Right. The criminalization of black men. In our communities. It breaks my heart when I see some black men write certain things, and I'm just like, bro, do you understand
what you're saying?
What you're saying, but why aren't people talking enough about the Supreme Court, in your opinion?
It feels like it's nothing you could do about it. It's like a secret group of people. You know who they are, but you don't know what they're saying, where they meet, what time they meet. You don't know what, it's like, and people love to say oh, so-and-so is in the Illuminati. That's the Illuminati, bro. That's it. The Supreme Court, that's it. Okay? A group of, it's there, but you can't feel it or touch it. And then all of a sudden, decisions are made, and that's it. And then you're waiting for somebody to write something to say why they agree or disagree with the opinion. That's it. So it's very hard for folks to fight the air. It's very hard. Where you might be able to find the president. There's a schedule that comes out, and you might be able to go protest at the United Nations or this and that. Where are you gonna go find Clarence Thomas? Where is Kavanaugh? Where is he at? What day? Where? You are not on the mailing list.
But that's why it's important.
You're not on the mailing list. It is true, but I'm saying you are not. TT Torres is not on the mailing list for an event where Clarence Thomas or Kavanaugh, these other people are speaking. So you don't even know how to fight that. Yeah. So to even talk about it, it's like, what can we do to change it? So there needs to be reform to the Supreme Court. That needs to happen. It is unfortunate, however, though, that Joe Biden sat on it and didn't do anything for all of this time. And now these people have stacked the courts in their favor. And now what? Now, if you got voter suppression happening, what's happening in Arizona? Say, well, we told y'all to vote down ballot.
Right. That's my point. But look what's happening in is it Arizona or Texas? I can't remember which state, where the governor has issued all of these arrest warrants and knocking on people's doors, doing searches on the Hispanic community.
Oh, they're going to do that.
Talking about voter fraud. And
who knows? I don't know where it is, but could be in Texas.
So there is something that can be done when you vote down the ballot with Congress and the Senate, because it is in the Constitution that Congress can intervene.
Absolutely.
But if they pass laws in Congress and it doesn't move through the Senate, just like the bill,
George Floyd Justice and Police and
the Act and the economic, was it the economic package that they tried, inflation or something that they tried, and Trump said no because it would be in favor of the Democrats and he could lose the election.
I mean, I know they did that with the immigration.
Was it the? Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what it was. With the immigration reform bill that both sides came to the table for, it got passed in the Congress and it got killed in the Senate.
And now it's the other way around.
Right.
We have the majority in the Senate, which is +1, I think. It's not a large margin. And then the Congress we don't have. So it's, it's the ping pong game. Again, it's the wagging of the tail. But it is true that voting down ballot matters. It's significant. It's a lot of people have been out here. One thing I do appreciate about chaos is that people do learn. Right. So because there's so much chaos around all of this, you got folks that's like, bruh, I can't listen to so-and-so's podcast. I got to go Google, search, read, and find out for myself. And so more people are beginning to understand the 3 branches of government, how they all work, and what you need to do in order to be able to get a bill to the president so he can sign it, because he does not make bills. He doesn't make legislation. He can influence it. He could come out and say, we need to reform the Supreme Court. We do not need to have justices that are on the bench their whole life and they die on the bench. There needs to be a 75 or 80 age limit, right? Or cutoff. He could say that. And then he could get an appointment, because, by the way, the president can't just walk up to Congress. I didn't know this. I thought he could just go on Capitol Hill and talk to whoever he wants. He can't. He needs an appointment. So he can get an appointment with a few
it's like going to the DMV.
Huh? Yeah, right.
I need a ticket.
He can get an appointment with a few congressional members and senators, and he can talk to them about it. He can invite them over for dinner, which means he's influencing legislation. He's telling them what he wants. He's telling them what he's thinking. And, of course, that's when he would send his vice president to go do work to get in there, and also other members of his cabinet. So he can do that. But in order for him to sign a bill, it has to pass through the Congress and the Senate. That's it. And then the bill gets to him. So if one of those entities blocks it, it's a wrap. Yeah. He will, and of course, he can sign an executive order. He did that for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. He signed an executive order. It's not as strong as it needs to be, number one. And also, it can be overturned as soon as the next president takes office. So that's the reason why executive orders, they're cool. That's what you want the president to do something, but they do not stick. It's not legislation that's passed that is solid and in stone.
And some people just don't know that.
They don't, right? And it's important that you have these conversations on your show and that they happen in spaces where, our people are, for being entertained, they also have to be educated. And I think that's the responsibility of blogs. That's the responsibility of radio shows, of all of these different, where you have the minds of the people. If we're not feeding them information, where else are they going to get it? We have to be that bridge.
Well, Black radio was always that.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Black radio was it's created because they weren't giving our folks proper information.
Absolutely.
Black radio was always community driven,
and it still is.
And it still is.
It still is.
But Black radio was the pillar of the community.
I listened to your show. I listened to different shows, different people, and you hear folks like me and others that are way more, knowledgeable and all of that. They're on these shows and they're talking. And sometimes people have a weekly segment, a monthly this or that. That's important. But there is another force, and this damn thing right here,
that phone,
baby, this thing can mess your mind up.
Because it was dangerous. Because, you know, one of my close friends said to me that he wasn't voting for Kamala because of how many black men she put behind prison.
That's a big misconception.
So I said to him, well, how many? And when did you know that? And where did you get that from?
Absolutely.
Because that was a right-wing narrative talking point when she ran in the last election that people just ran without doing the research. And if you look thoroughly,
because I went to look
so much. I know you went to look.
You know I did, because I was like, when I heard that, I was like, let me put my tail between my legs, because I felt like I had been out there talking shit. And then I saw that and I was like, oh no, right? Because she was a prosecutor. So any prosecutor, at least this is my opinion, and I don't know anybody that I could say anything otherwise. Maybe Marilyn Mosby, who's somebody who I believe, and Kim Fox, there's a few black women who were prosecutors that were really, really about the people. But if you listen to the local community, there's always going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 stories about really egregious shit that happened, right? Like people being wrongfully convicted, people, you know, being harmed by the system, because if you are in the position as prosecutor, or as attorney general, you are upholding a system that was built on white supremacy. That's a fact. So you have to look for other details to be able to see what else was this person doing. So I went to go check that out, because I was like, man, if she was like putting away a bunch of black men, like I can't support that. One, the numbers are wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you look at the actual numbers, let's just be clear. We're talking about 40 something people actually being convicted and maybe serving time, right? Some of them, others were sent to the divergence program that she created, one of the first prosecutors in the country to create a program where you would go to get educated versus going straight to jail. But, you know, let's just say 50 people were convicted of something and maybe they did time. I didn't look at the granular details of all of that, but let's just say they did. They don't need to go to jail. But some people did something wrong. Let me say it like that.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe our people need to go to jail. I think we need other ways to deal with folks doing things that's illegal or whatever. But there are people who have actually harmed other folks, right? There are people who are poisoning children. There are people who've got kids out here selling drugs for them, kids being killed, people shooting, killing, doing all kinds of things. And they need to be held accountable some way. Mm-hmm. So let's say it like that, right? Okay. So some people, so let's go with 20, 25, let's say half and half of that number. We're still talking about a very small number of people. Now, if there's 5 or 10 people, maybe even 20, who are saying that I was wrongfully convicted, those wrongs need to be righted. I would support them, even as I say that I don't want Donald Trump to be president, and I think Kamala Harris would be a better president. I would say, let's get her elected. And if we got 20 cases that she was involved in or that her office prosecuted, we need to take those 20 cases to the White House and slam them down on the table and say, what are we going to do to deal with restoration for these people? How do they receive some form of restorative justice for what this system that you were in charge of did? So I still think that should happen. But when you start talking about thousands of black men went to jail, the numbers are not there to support it. And that's why I'm saying to you, I need your information to be factual. Because once it's factual, then I'm in the mud with you on how we gonna deal with it. Or I can understand. That's why I said, if your thing is my red line is Palestine, I can't argue with you, because you have a right to say I saw too many babies blown up. I just can't do it. Cool. But if you say it's because thousands of black men went to jail, then I'm like, it's not accurate.
Yeah.
And again, where did you get this information from? Mm-hmm. Who told you this? Because if you, I always say to people, it's funny that we will quickly share a New York Post article, and the New York Post is out here calling us monkeys.
All the time they have
the New York Post is so super racist.
All the time.
And we will share it around and be like, I'm against racism. Share the same story written in the voice of someone who is biased towards our community. This is a proven example of an entity, a publication that has been extremely disrespectful and biased towards our community. And we will go out and use what they say about us as fact. We got to be more mindful, and our emotional intelligence, as I've been hearing lately from so many black men who are telling me, oh, you know, you're against Donald Trump because you're too emotional. I'm like, okay. I'm actually very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart. And I'm not. And yeah, I am emotional because I know my granddaughter, right? What this country will be for her. The fact that right now she would not be able to make decisions about her own body if she lives in certain states. Yeah, that makes me very emotional. And how I address it is going to be practical. And that means I'm going to use my vote.
Yeah. Another thing, too, I saw people, you know, discredit her on reparations.
Right. It's weird.
And she has been very vocal about that.
And clear.
And very clear. Where does that even stem from?
Well, it's the clip culture. It's the clip culture. It's been done to me several times where, you know, they take a clip of something. I said, that's why I'm like, let me make sure I say I don't think people should go to jail because, you know, that'll be the clip of the day. And I'm sure you've seen it too, where it's like, well, that's not the context, especially when you're doing interviews all the time.
Girl, a reality show I was on took a clip and it went viral. And I'm like, did people really watch the whole thing?
What are you talking about? Right. Like, so clip culture is very dangerous. And, you know, I'll say this, right? Like, I feel like even with myself, there are times where I'm speaking and later on I go back and be like, damn, I could have said that better. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, maybe I should have read 20 more pages of that book. Like I stopped at the point and I didn't think through some of the other issues or some of the other layers that might come up because I have already addressed whatever I was looking for. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And didn't think about how other people will perceive it and then be able to address some of those concerns as well. And I think that, you know, Vice President Harris, there have been times when she said things that people have been able to sort of pick apart. And I'm sure that as time has gone on, she's gotten better and, you know, really evolved and thought about it and read the extra 20 pages and went the extra way and spoke to some people who were not in her atmosphere that she's like, well, wait a minute. They're so mad about this online or, you know, other policy people or whomever, they're upset about it. What did I miss? So now maybe I need to engage someone that looks different from me or from a different community. That's what evolution is all about.
Maturity,
and growth, so I'm sure that there are some things that she probably said somewhere along the line that she would change, fix, adjust, maybe double down on. And therefore, people have been able to use clips. And it happens to every single person. I don't care what president you are, whatever you are, it happens. So along the way, she said this or said that, and they've clipped it and put it all together and made up this narrative that she does not support reparations, which is not true. What she said is that she does not believe that you can just write a check for each person and then it's over and that's it and walk away from it. That's what she said. There are more people who believe that.
Yeah.
There are other people who believe that reparations cannot just be sending a check to each one of us and then the money is gone or whatever we choose to do with it. If you take it and try to buy a house, let's just say, right? Take it, try to buy a house. They won't give you the rest of the loan because that's a fact that happens to us. Like redlining is still an issue. We're still dealing with discrimination in banking. This is a thing. So just having money does not mean that it is actually going to repair what has happened to our people. Their reparations is fair housing. It is ending food deserts. It is looking at education, like making sure there's access to education for all of our young people, making sure our young people have food morning, afternoon,
so it's just
and night.
Like everybody has this idea of what it should look
Everybody
like.
has different
ideas,
different concepts. And so she is entitled to having her concept of what it is. And that is the reason why they are trying, God, bless Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who was carrying the study bill, to sit down and really do the work to figure out, like, what does it look like for us to have reparations in our community? Should we get a check? Hell yeah. But they didn't just say 40 acres, right? They said 40 acres and a mule, right? So there's always been people who believe that reparations look like a multitude of things, and we need to fix it. And should it still be stalled? Hell no. And should she do more? And should this one do more? But Congress should sign the bill to get the study done, because once the bill for the study is done, then perhaps we can move it from a study to cash in the bank and other things.
Now that Sheila is gone, who would take that?
I don't know who they have appointed, or who. I'm not 100% sure about that process, right? Because she took it over, and I'm not sure exactly how it works or who will be the one to step up and carry it. But it needs to be somebody strong. And when I tell you, oh man, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to sit in a room and listen to Sheila Jackson Lee speak about her bill, the study for reparations, and the direction. Like, she had it all laid out. It wasn't like just do a study and then wait, a million years. Nah, this thing was like, study is done. There's certain very important people that we will bring to the table, and we already have all this information that we need. Then we're going to advance it to the next stage, put some things on the table, get a new bill done, and let's sign it. And she was just so, like, her thinking around it was simple, complex, simple. Yeah. Just, she had all the details worked out. And so you need somebody to do that. And I mean, I used to work at National Action Network. She stood, Vice President Harris stood on a stage there and said, I support reparations. I mean, there's like 10 videos of her saying that she supports reparations, and yet they know what they're doing. And the tactic works so well. During the Women's March, and the New York Times called me up one day, and they're like, in fact, Linda Sarsour calls me, and she's like, the New York Times is trying to get in touch with this. Is really important. You got to listen to them. And girl, I wasn't trying to talk to the New York Times, Washington Post, none of these people after what they did to me back when. I don't want to be in your paper, and I'm not interested in hearing anything you have to say. But the story they were calling to talk about is how they had been for several months, maybe even more than a year, studying the Women's March and the online traffic. And they found that Russian bots were involved in the messaging that was out there, the narrative that was created about us. So, and it was specifically focused on Linda because obviously the Palestinian, her being a Palestinian person, was a big part of it. But then you put on top of that my relationship to Minister Farrakhan and all of these things. They were bombarding us with stories and tweets and just everything, all the things you could think of. And come to find out, they weren't all Jewish people who hated Tamika Mallory or Black people who were against us, or, it was the Russian bots. It was the Russian bots. It was the Russian bots. So when you say, why is the internet so crazy right now? They're back. Black Lives Matter. They took the Black Lives Matter logo, they took certain faces and created profiles and went out and told people not to vote for Hillary Clinton. Yeah. That happened. Yeah. And we fall down again every single time.
Yeah. Because they know who they want to push to win that election. And I could sit here and talk to you all day, but I do want to get to Project 2025.
Oh, yeah, man. I tell you, boy.
Why is that so important for our community to pay attention to?
Well, here's the thing.
In its simplest form.
Why is it that you and me, if we hang out together right? And I'm out here getting high, sleeping around, doing all kinds of things. How come your husband can look at you and say, TT, I don't know what's up with your girl, but my homeboys keep coming back telling me that she's doing this and doing that. Then you be out there with her. Every time y'all go somewhere on a trip or whatever, she always around. She's always in our house. She's always in your car. She's always in fight. You always texting with her. You put her on every contract, but then she's in fight. She's arrested. She got a new man. She's doing all this weird stuff. Why is it? Right? I just gave you a whole list of things that would make your husband say, I don't know if I like this girl coming around. Right? Mm-hmm. Well, why is it not the same thing when Donald Trump's whole team wrote the Project 2025 platform?
It's crazy. It's
how come? So you can understand that because your mama would look at your friends coming in the house and say, that one right there, she's fast.
Yeah.
Or that guy, he's trouble. Don't bring him back. Those are the people who wrote the platform, who work for the man who wants to be president, who have been caught on tape saying, we understand that he's got to distance himself for us right now, but we've already worked all of this out. And y'all gonna tell me that our mothers are dumb. Your husband is dumb. Your sister who doesn't like your friend is dumb for seeing things that people are doing in real time that could put your life in jeopardy.
They already, but that's the crazy part. Project 2025 is already happening under your nose, and you can't see it.
When Joe Biden took office, and I'm very critical of President Biden, and sometimes I could be very critical of Vice President Harris as well. So, people will be like, well, damn, you don't got anything positive to say about them? I do. They did some good things. And one of the things that he did, as soon as he took office, he reversed an executive order that Donald Trump signed, right, where he was trying to have the power to fire civil service employees by the thousands because they did not support his agenda. Now, let me just break this down and we can go. You remember when he called the state's attorney in Georgia and said, I need 10,000, 11,000, something votes.
Yeah.
Right? You remember when he did that? Okay. So now they're saying, and in Project 2025 is there, that they want to have this particular ability to fire people who work in civil service jobs, federal jobs that do not support the president's agenda. Okay, so you know what that looks like? I need 11,000 some many votes. I need you to do XYZ thing. I need you to hold back the stimulus checks and put my signature on them. I need you to do all of these outrageous and illegal things. Some of this is illegal, and if you don't do it,
you're going to lose your job.
You're going to lose your job. So somebody would say, well, he says he doesn't support Project 2025. Well, he already signed. He tried to sign an executive order to do that. He did sign it. Schedule F is what it's called. Look it up. He did that. And guess what? When President Biden came in, he's like, nah, we can't do this. People supposed to follow the guidelines, not your personal desires to find 11,000 and so many votes. And this is different because we're talking about somebody that's over the elections in Georgia. But it's the same mindset.
Yeah.
It's the same mindset.
It's the same mentality.
Project 2025 is dude's baby.
Yeah.
That's his baby. They worked on that, all of them. And maybe he wasn't in the room, but he knew it was happening. He knows what it is, and he supports it.
And my fear is if he gets in office, he will never leave. Having immunity for a president is crazy.
And then being able to fire people who don't do what you say. These people are creating fascism, like they're putting fascism into place.
Yeah.
Where there's a dictator, and we are nothing more than those who will have to bow down or else. And guess what? They're going to have law enforcement in place because that's another thing. He's saying that he wants police. Like, pay attention, family. Okay, pay attention. You got a Supreme Court that's saying the president is immune. Mm-hmm. As long as he's in office, whatever he does, he's immune. He's telling you that he wants police officers to be immune from prosecution. He also wants to fire workers, right, who don't support his agenda. All of these things, you line them up. This sounds like fascism. It sounds like a world where you have to follow whatever they say, and if you don't, they can lock you up or kill you, and the police will be able to do, no court will do anything about it. The Supreme Court will not step in and stop him from the things that he's trying to do. What are we talking about? You don't even have protection at all.
Yeah.
Donald Trump can't be my president if I can do anything about it.
1000%. I have so much more to talk to you about. I want you to come back for a part 2 because I want to talk about Cori Bush, and I want to talk about
broke my heart.
The education things that have been thrown out. Like, it's so much I want to get to. Abandoning the books. It's so much. It's like I feel like I haven't been able to like talk to you for a while. So when I get time with you, I'm like, okay, so I got a question about this, and this.
But you know so much. TT, you know a lot. And I know you give off this energy of like, I'm cool and I'm smart and all of that, and I'm focused and I'm driven on my work, and I'm not like out there messing with people and in other people's business and in their stuff. But you are a brilliant woman. Like, when you call me, the questions that you ask, I often feel like you're asking it because you feel insecure that maybe I don't know, and you know all the details. You're like, and so then how do we stop this? Because we want the hostages released, and I want to see that the Palestinians, and I feel like they had a deal. And remember, what about the arms embargo? Like, you're on all the details. You need to, don't feel like you don't know, because you know.
I know,
you know
but
all of it.
I do. And, I've always loved politics. I've always been into it and have talked to folks, but it's just that sometimes my mind is so overwhelmed and I want to be involved, and it's like, but I want to make sure I'm being involved in the right thing so that when I'm speaking, then I know what I'm speaking about.
I do that every day. The way that you support women is like huge.
Thank you.
I how many times have you called me like, listen, these women are having an issue. I don't know all the details, but can you talk to them and just see if there's anything that you can do? Like, you do that so often for so many people. And so I just love you. I love your spirit. Too. You're not the gossip girl who's trying to ruin people's lives. You're like trying to hold people up.
Yeah, you know what? I never really been that. I think, some people misinterpret me because I don't have like a clique. Right, so you know what I mean? Right. I feel like sometimes people like, is she cool? Is she not cool? What's up with her? Like, what's going on with her? Because I'm always out the way. You know what I mean? I'm out the way. I just be like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
But you have so many people that love you. Every time you have an event or you do anything, you get a lot of support from a lot of beautiful people. And it's you can always tell by the people around the type of person that you are. And we're not perfect, right?
We're not
perfect.
And we make mistakes. A lot of mistakes.
And not just, and I'm starting to be careful about using the word mistake, because it gives people the ability to kind of separate themselves from the things that they do. So I wouldn't say I always make mistakes. Sometimes I just make bad decisions. And that's a thing in life. I have made some bad decisions, but overall I try to make most of my days better than the worst decision that I made the day before.
And if you make a bad decision, it's okay, because you have learned from that decision so that you can make a better one. Yeah. And that's kind of like, as you get older, you learn to accept.
Yep.
Like, okay, maybe I didn't do that to the best of my decision. Right. But in that moment,
it seemed right.
It felt good. It felt good. But now that I know, okay, perhaps I shouldn't have done that, or maybe that wasn't the right way to handle that. You can move through life a little bit better. So that saying, it does get better with time. It really does. It does. Because and you do better and you make better decisions.
Yeah, I mean, this is 10 years or so of you and I meeting and knowing one another, and we've grown. Like, you know, the person I was 10 years ago, I'm not that person anymore.
And some people can't see you past the person you was 10 years ago. They can't even see you past the person you was a year ago. Can you imagine?
And I've grown, exactly. We grow in like 5-year increments.
Right. So you talk to someone and they still talking about shit you did 10 years ago. You're like, they still.
But I've learned, again, that therapy is so important. And if you know, anybody out there is listening and you're not seeing someone or reading something or listening to some podcast or doing something that is about dealing with the inner work, because one of the things that you have to let go of is what people think. That is something that will take you out, is, you know, worrying about other people's thoughts about you.
That's not your problem.
No.
It's not your problem. On that note, guys, thank you so much. It's Tamika Mallory. Her new book, you guys can pre-order it right now. You can go to her page and pre-order the book. And she's going to be back for part 2. This conversation was incredible. Just felt like two girls over a glass of wine at the dinner table. Thank you so much for tapping in, everybody. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, okay? Thank you. Bye.